So I'll start this off immediately by saying I do not do radios. I don't do radio videos. Um, I wanted one of these. This is a Zenith 500E. Um, I wanted one of these just because I think they're cool and they're really well made. Um, and really, this is not a radio video. So this radio actually works. It doesn't appear to have any bad transistors. Doesn't Somebody already recapped it? It looks like, albeit not real well, I think. But um, the pot was bad, and the reason I'm making the video on this is because there isn't a replacement available. I was kind of surprised because these are pretty popular. There is a guy I saw makes one for the 500H. This is a 500E, different pot. I tore this thing apart, because the switch was not working. I pulled it apart, tried to fix it. It had gotten water in it, and the spring was rusted out. So I'm not going to even bother with it. The carbon trace, as you can probably see here. Let's see. Put that in a position where you can see it. Carbon trace is gone on this part of the pot, which is the lowest end of the volume. It's junk. So, it's a 5K pot. It is something that's available, but not with this shaft size. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to cut this shaft off of here. I'll probably disassemble the back of this to get the shaft out of it. I'm going to turn the shaft and bore it. So the new pot that I found has a shaft that's 60 thousandths smaller than this shaft is. So this is 0.18, I believe it is. I think it's like 0.185. I forget what the new shaft is, but I remember it's 60 thousandths smaller. So I'm going to attempt to bore this out so I can insert it over the top of the shaft of the new pot that's on its way. So I'm waiting for it to come from DigiKey, but it has the power switch. It's a 5K pot and everything. It's just got the wrong shaft size. Even the nut size of this piece right here, where it would go through the circuit board, is correct. It's 1/4 inch, and it will fit. The new one will fit everything except for the shaft size. So if I can take this shaft off here and I can bore it on my lathe, it's going to be a little bit tough because it's so small, but I'll give it a shot. So let's see if I can do that. The pot came in. It's actually a little bit early. This is the replacement, and like I said, everything about this is perfect except for the shaft size. I've disassembled the old pot. I just cut this off, so I'm going to turn this down and then bore it, and simply bore it to this size, and probably just use some 680 Loctite or something on it. It doesn't need to be anything special. So we'll get this chucked up in the lathe, and we'll go from there. All right, it's been cut off, and I faced it, and it's been bored. So I bored it out, and I bored it about 5 thousandths under the shaft. Let's see if I can get this to focus. But the next thing I'm going to do is cut the shaft off here, and then it'll be a press fit, and I'll put a little bit of Loctite on there to keep it from going anywhere. But not too difficult. It only took me about 2 minutes to face that and bore it. So here it is. It was a little bit of a bear, I'll tell you. See if I can get that to focus. I did bore it a little bit too far, by the way. I forgot to mention that, but it doesn't really make any difference. I just cut the shaft shorter. 5 thousandths undercut was a little bit too small. I had to bore it out with some little miniature broaches that I've got for doing clock work. I use these guys. You have to be so careful with this. This little pot is so delicate. I was trying to press this on here as careful as possible, and I pushed the tab for the switch in the back. I pushed it in, and it got jammed up, and I was worried that I broke it. I should have ordered more than one of these, but like an idiot, I only ordered one because, I'm stupid. But anyways, I was able to pull the tab back out from the switch in the back without any damage. I checked it with my meter. Everything is good. The pot is good on both ends and all the way through. It's still reading right. The switch is still reading correctly. The other thing that you have to make sure you do is you want to check to make sure that this is clocked right. There is a line. This does face up. You have to look at how the pot gets oriented on the back of the board. I put the volume control knob on here and clocked it so that in the off position it'll be up. I mean, it's not critical, but if you want it to look right when it's done, you need to make sure that you clock that correctly. So I did that. I put a little red Loctite on here. This is 271, so it's a little not as strong as 680, but I mean, you have to heat this stuff to get it off. So it's not going anywhere. I'd say if you undercut this by 1 or 2 thousandths, that would be more than sufficient to hold it, because you really want that press fit holding it onto the shaft. I didn't have a drill bit. My choices are 120 thousandths or 128 thousandths, and the shaft is 0.125. So I undercut it on purpose and I bored it out by hand. So it came out all right. It's pretty much straight. It might be a little bit crooked, but it's real difficult to bore something so small on my little lathe. It's a little bit bigger than a jeweler's lathe. Harbor Freight special, it gets used twice a year kind of a thing. But it worked well enough. For this, it'll work just fine. So you can see it's pressed on here. It clicks just like it's supposed to. So I'm going to put this back in the radio and get it soldered up here. I'm just waiting for the iron to heat up. Oh, and for anybody that's actually doing a repair on one of these 500Es, this is the pot that I bought. DigiKey item. This is the part number. I think even if you can even scan the QR code, and I think it takes you to the part number. I'm not sure if that only takes you to my order or if that takes you to the part number, but either way, it's a CTS, which is real common brand for pots. 5K, quarter watt, linear pot. They didn't have an audio taper, which is fine. It doesn't really matter. This will work just fine. So all the specs, everything's correct. The diameter of the threading here will fit the board. The only thing that you have to do is use the old pot if you have it. Cut it off and bore it out and press this on there. And that gets you exactly what you need. So let's get this reinstalled and see how it works. So here it is with the switch installed and soldered back in. It's a little bit of a challenge. The lead length for the power switch is a little bit more tough because the leads are on the side on this one. The old one, they're on the back. So they do still make it. I didn't need to change them or anything. I just popped some batteries in it. I haven't turned it on yet, but oh, you know what? I don't have the speaker hooked up. Let me hook that up. All right, I've got the speaker back in it here. So let's see if this thing makes some noise. There we go. Turn off my soldering iron. There. Soldering iron makes a lot of interference. Yep, seems to work. So immediately what I'm noticing, because it's a linear pot, it is definitely more sensitive. Doesn't take very much volume at all. But that's okay. I mean, it's the only pot that was available that would even remotely work in this thing. But I'm happy. It works. The on-off switch works. So we'll put this thing all the way back together. It's a easy fix for a part that's not available anymore. I don't normally do this kind of stuff on video. I leave that to Shango 66 and Radio TV Phono Nut. Those are the guys that do this stuff. I do this as a hobby, but I certainly don't do it to make videos. But I think this particular thing, I didn't find a whole lot of info on it. I'm kind of surprised because these Royals are, especially the 500s, are so freaking popular. And I heard that the pots on these things just don't last. So, I wanted to make sure I documented this because make it easy for somebody. This was $10 shipped to me, I think, from DigiKey. I think between the pot and shipping, it was like $10. So not a hard fix at all. So that's a volume control replacement on a Royal 500E. Because there is a difference. It's not the same pot that's in the H, or it may be the same in the D. I can't tell you that for sure, but I have an H, and it's not the same pot. So Royal 500E Zenith pot replacement. Back in one piece. The only complaint that I have is that this pot, and I don't know if it's this particular pot or just the fact that it's a linear pot, but it's pretty sensitive, and I saw this on the meter when I checked it. It kind of lags. There isn't really much change, and then all of a sudden it changes the resistance. So you'll see here. I'll turn it on. It's low, same, and then it comes up right there. So. A little bit sensitive, but I mean, it works, and it's got an on-off switch now, which I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the on-off switch is the part that broke in the old pot, and it was just filled with rust. Somebody got it wet, and the little tiny spring just rusted out because that's what that high carbon steel does. So this is the only replacement that I found that's like commercially available. So, there may be others out there, but the 500E, there wasn't a whole lot on replacing the volume switch. They talk about, there's folks on the Antique Radio Forum talk about, customize, turn down the shaft kind of a thing. This was easy. I took the old one off, bored it out, put it on a smaller shaft pot that happens to meet the specs that I need. So back together, working order.